Adam asks, hi, Jonathan. In Mark 8:22-26, Jesus leads a blind man out of the village, heals him, and tells him not to return. I can't figure out why all this about leaving the village and not returning. Could you connect some dots? They come to Bethesda, and some people brought a blind man and begged Jesus to touch him. He took the blind man by the hand and led him outside the village. When he had spit on the man's eyes and put his hands on him, Jesus asked, do you see anything? He looked up and said, I see people. They look like trees walking around. Once more, Jesus put his hands on the man's eyes. Then his eyes were opened. His sight was restored, and he saw everything clearly. Jesus sent him home, saying, don't even go into the village. Well, I think that this is one of the ways to understand it, is that at least at the beginning, you get the feeling that Christ wants to remain somewhat secretive about what he's doing. And so he doesn't want his miracles to be known at first. And so you can almost see it as a seed that's kind of growing, so he starts small with the disciples, does a miracle with his disciples, and then he starts to do miracles more and more. And he warns people not to talk about his miracles at the beginning. And then it's as if you can see like a kind of progressive revelation that happens through his story. I think that it has something to do with that. There are other places where he tells people not to talk about his miracles. But that's a really interesting story, that story. I was talking about that today with Neil deGrade of Dirt Poor Robins. We were talking about this story, and how what's interesting about that story is this idea that Christ, first of all, he spits on his eyes, and you can kind of see it as this water coming from above. That's how I understand it. The fact that he takes the person outside the village, you can imagine it as the way that you can kind of see it is almost as if like he's taking the beggar, the blind beggar, outside the village. So he's manifesting, he's bringing him out into chaos, you could say, or outside of the city. And so which is manifesting what he is, which is a blind beggar. So he's an outside figure. And so he's taking him to where he is, and then he spits from above. And so he sends the water coming down from above, like rain, or like meaning coming from above, and that's what heals him. But the weird thing about the story is the first part, where at first he says, I see people, they look like trees walking around, and then Christ puts his hands on the man's eyes, like it's like he covers his eyes, and then his eyes open up, and then he sees things normally. And so it's weird. It almost feels like at first his vision was too high. It's like at first he just sees patterns, sees these trees, right? These patterns walking around. It's as if Christ has to kind of lower his vision a little bit by covering his eyes, and then he's able to kind of see the flesh. It feels like that's what's going on in that story, but it's very mysterious. I mean, there's so many things about Christ which are very mysterious. So